seat. Close your eyes and breathe in. You have just passed Crawford Notch and the Old Man of the Mountains on the trip north, and the air has changed now. It is thinner and lighter and smells of oxygen and pine needles. I sit in the back seat of the lumbering blue Buick Roadmaster, a car with portholes that my father bought used, which will give up the ghost in less than a year. Summer stretches ahead, a long academic summer, and I'm optimistic that my life will change completely, even though my mind keeps wandering back to James Dean. I'm 13 years old, just out of 8th grade, and in love with James Dean. I saw him in East of Eden, and now I wear a gray sweatshirt and conceal a lipstick called Tangine Natural in the front pocket of my jeans. My life is full of promise, although it feels like a fast-moving boat that I don't know how to steer. Within a few months, James Dean will wreck his Porsche, and the Russians will launch Sputnik, and Jonas Salk will invent a vaccine for polio. But now it is June 1955, and my family is headed for the Davis cottage, which belongs to a childhood friend of my mother's. The kitchen has high sinks because Suzanne Davis, my mother explained, was tall. The house is also equipped with willow-patterned dishes, which were for ordinary use. And I see them in another part of the country decades later in an antique store. The south side of the cottage has a long screened-in porch facing the mountains with a faded yellow canvas swing that seats at least 4. What seems truly exotic is the care we have to take with garbage to keep it from bears and the raccoon that visits the entryway beside the kitchen. The living room is dark and drafty, but there's a place for a fire and to make popcorn too. We have a long-handled wire screen box, and that's what you do to make popcorn. You shake it over the fire, and 2 solid wooden chairs set back. And the main thing about this living room I remember is that it was filled with academic books, but it had a row of detective novels. And I scorned them at first and then crawled up and got one and became seduced by Agatha Christie. I had one very good friend in Randolph who shall remain nameless for this memoir. We were both avid readers and both eager to leave childhood behind. One day on a trip to Berlin, we bought a paperback book from one of those drugstore racks that spins around with lurid colors. It was called Violent Streets. It showed a gangster and his mall on the front cover. He wore a black leather jacket, and she had red painted lips with a cigarette dangling out of her mouth. In those days, there were no laws against selling cigarettes to minors. They were cheap and everybody seemed to smoke. I put down my 50 cents and bought a pack of Winstons. Soon after, I went with this friend to see the latest crop of kittens at Catherine Wood's farm after my parents picked up the mail from the post office there. Every year brought at least one crop of kittens, and we delighted in them, so it became a treat when we went to pick up the mail. We escaped into the barn to read the book and take lessons on becoming a juvenile delinquent. We hid in the barn and read passages aloud to each other, doubled up with laughter. Then, hidden in the bales of straw, we pulled out the cigarettes, lit them up, and practiced posing with each other. It tasted harsh but oddly fragrant, and I tried dangling it from my lips, holding it between 2 fingers, and trying to look nonchalant as I blew out the uninhaled smoke. I still remember reeling down the ramp to the barn, trying not to vomit. The smell wouldn't come off my fingers, and I thought I'd never be rid of the taste. I staggered up the beeline to the pasture path, thinking I'd never get home. Now, close your eyes. Breathe in. The new mown hay smells warm and fragrant in this barn. To this day, I'm amazed we didn't burn it down.